know about you, but I've always been very curious about mushrooms. They're fascinating, how they grow, where they come from. Well, you can actually grow your own mushrooms at home, and it's not that difficult. Here to tell us how is Calvin Gardner, who is an agent with the University of Florida IFAS Extension. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Calvin, this is fascinating to me. What in the world are we looking at in this plastic tub?
So this plastic tub is full of fungi. So it is an organism that has eaten up a bunch of food in here, and then it's gotten everything digested, and it started to create mushrooms that we could then harvest and eat.
Oh my goodness. So on the top here, we're seeing, you said these are oyster mushrooms?
Yes, these are oyster mushrooms.
Okay, and normally they'd have a bigger cap.
Yeah, so they would typically have a bigger cap. This one was done in a little bit more of a enclosed environment, so it doesn't have the same caps, but works the same way as we're going to see today.
Okay, so show us how to do this.
Okay, so growing mushrooms is really simple, and it's a really amazing urban extension solution because a lot of people don't always have yards to grow their own food in, or even a whole lot of light to grow their own food in. So this is a way that we can grow something that we can actually put on our plate without ever having to have any sunlight, or and have very little materials put into it as well. So this right here is a bag, and inside this bag is full of oak sawdust. And so
little pellets
made
of oak sawdust
in a smoker. They're a little bit different than what you'd see as a smoker pellet, but it's the same thing. It's a bunch of compressed sawdust that gets together. And so when you have this compressed sawdust, what you have to do is you just have to hydrate it. And so we just throw it in some water, and you might even be able to see here, it'll kind of begin to soak up a little bit of the water over time. And as we add it and mix it with this bag, it will expand to about double its size.
Wow, okay.
So the reason why we're using this sawdust is because mushrooms like to eat certain things, and the mushrooms that are here, which are oyster mushrooms, love to eat oak. And so if we could find a bunch of sawdust and put it together, it will be kind of like oatmeal for them. It's kind of already ground up, and they'll eat it really fast.
That is fascinating. And that also explains why you see mushrooms on trees a lot, right? They grow on the tree bark. That's their food. That's what sustains them.
Yes. So we're just trying to play it out for them and make it the best environment. So we're going to go ahead and just take some of the water here.
Can we turn this so everyone can see? Because I don't want to spill. Oh, there you go. See how those have expanded in the water? Okay. Yep. What do we do now?
I'll have you want to pour it in there for me?
Oh, we're going to pour it right in there.
Okay. So you go ahead and just dump some of this in there.
Is this going to like explode and go over the...
And that should be good on the water. There we go.
Okay. All right. Where do we get these, Calvin?
So
where would we find them?
There's a lot of these things that we talk about today can be easily found online. There's a lot of different providers. So this is what we call mushroom growing substrate. So if you just went onto Google and typed in mushroom growing substrate, you'd find a lot of different vendors that would be selling oak sawdust substrate. And so you can buy it from whichever you'd like to.
Okay, awesome. All right, and now it's really kind of solid.
Yeah, now it's a solid bag. It's completely soaked up all that water. It's ready to go. So we have the food that the mushroom needs. We have the water that we'll need to survive. And now all we need to do is just add the fungi itself, and it will go ahead and start to eat everything in the bag. So this right here is another thing that people would have to order offline. It is mushroom spawn. So it's just a fancy word for a fungus that's already grown through a lot of oak already, and we can break it apart into its little pieces and use it like seeds in a garden and seed this bag with it, and it will begin to regrow through it and eat it.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So at what point do we translate from starting this in the bag to going to a container?
So it's the same practice, just on a bigger scale. So you can do this, and if you made a bag this size, it really depends on how many mushrooms you want.
Okay.
So a bag this size would give you about maybe a few clumps of mushrooms about this big, 2 to 3 big flushes, enough to put into a meal. But something like this is going to give you a few pounds of mushrooms over time. And again, there's not much difference between the two, except for the size of the container we put them in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you have to be ready because they all come in at the same time. So if you're doing something like this, you better be ready
So
to have a
plan
lot
a
of
meal with some
mushrooms.
mushrooms.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice filet mignon with a little sautéed mushrooms on top.
Oh, yes.
Some pasta with some mushrooms. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't like mushrooms. I think somebody told me that they were fungus, and so I thought, but they're delicious. And as an adult, I've learned to love them. Do you like them?
Oh, I love them.
Yeah.
They're good.
They're so good. All right, so real quick, show us how we seed this.
So I went ahead and just grabbed a chunk out of this. There's no real science to it outside of just getting a good handful. And I like to take a handful and just begin to break it up.
And put it on in.
Sprinkle it in.
And before we know it, we'll have mushrooms growing in here.
Yes. And so they'll begin to seed into there and kind of eat away and build something like this. The only difference is when we use something like this spawn, what happens is over time, it will begin to eat away at it. The more of this we use in this bag, the faster it will go.
Or grow. All right. Well, that is just fabulous. Kelvin, thank you so much. What an unusual idea. We appreciate that you are always sharing these fun ideas with us. You're a fun guy. Get it? Yeah. I couldn't resist. All right, folks. Well, if you enjoy mushrooms, this is a great way to make your own. And I hope that you too are able to create your own mushroom garden. Have fun with it.
And